Good morning or afternoon, whenever you watch one of my videos. I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I'm out on another of my morning walks. The throbbing you can hear is the bus behind me. I'm at St Mary's in Broadwater this morning. I've walked about a mile or so up to Broadwater, which from my house is a direct line. I'm sort of close to Teville Gate, and Broadwater is just a short stroll away. And Broadwater is much younger than Worthing, where I live. In fact, there was a broad load of water here back a few, well, 1,000 years ago, I guess. And I thought I'd come over to St Mary's, which is under restoration work at the moment, and just have a little walk around there and then go and have a look at Broadwater itself. And the funny thing is, I've never come up here. Of all the churches that I've looked at in Sussex and surrounding areas, I've never been to Broadwater. I suppose because it's in town, I always felt it was quite busy. It's not going to be busy today. So there it is. Interesting church. I don't know too much about it, but I can tell you that there was a Saxon church here at one time, excuse me, in the Saxon period, and then in the 1200s it was extended and Normanised, and then in the 19th century a lot of restoration work went on and it changed a hell of a lot. Now it's interesting because I didn't realise just how big and how extensive the graveyard was, and it goes right down here. But what I wanted to find was evidence of the Saxon door in the south wall, and I don't know if this is it. Just down here. Curiously, the heating is on. Let's carry on walking round. Yes, as I say, I'm not really a historian, and I have an interest in history. Obviously, I love the landscape, the heritage, and the nature. This is quite nice here to have a look at the shape of the church. It's sort of almost cruciform now, but it wasn't, I don't think, originally. Now, if this lockdown goes on and on and on, which it does look like it's going to do, excuse me, I need to think about my walks, because obviously there's only a limited area that I can go. And so I might rearrange the way I do a few things here. And I thought one of the things that I could do is pull out some of the books that I've got, the history books of Worthing and the area, and then revisit some places, take some photographs, and start delving into the history and make better presentation of some of the past events of this coastal seaside town, which hopefully would be perhaps a bit more interesting than just my vague wanderings. I've just come up here to look at this here. This is horse chestnut, as you can see, just coming into season. When you record like this, or when I record like this, I can only speak for myself. Very often you're just trying to keep the conversation going, you're trying to keep it light and interesting, and inevitably you come out with some very extraordinary terms. This is actually a very beautiful graveyard. We've got what looks like blackthorn here coming out, and a little bit of gorse. And this is all in Worthing, which is a bit unusual. Normally you have to get up onto the downs to see a bit of gorse. So I'm finding that very lovely. And of course the graves themselves, covered in the lichen that they've got here, all different colours of lichen, all rather beautiful. That's the Great East window from the outside, with a smaller window on the very top. I am a great lover of churches as buildings. I'm not religious in any way. I'm going to put the camera this way so you can see some of the buildings here opposite Broadwater's St Mary's Church. I'll just pan round here as well. Yes, I'm not religious, but I think that churches themselves, buildings, they are. I've said this many times in my videos, but I'm aware that, of course, I'm getting new viewers all the time. That churches represent. They're the oldest buildings that we would have flung up next to castles, and they would have started as wooden constructions in the Saxon times, and then the Normans, and this is a sweeping statement, put stone work in, and then they were adapted and changed over the centuries as the congregations grew. Some more lovely hawthorn, lots of yew trees here, lots of these big ones, by the way. Those that are now in silhouette are Irish yews, and that one I believe is an English yew. If that's wrong, I'll be corrected. Yeah, so churches, and of course they were the most significant building in any town and village, and so people congregated there. All sorts of things happened in the church. You had church ales where monies were raised for the poor. You obviously had the services, and very often people would bring their cattle and sheep and various things into the church right in the earliest days as a sort of marketplace. Right, let's go and walk up into Broadwater and have a quick shufty around there. So we're coming past a sweet shop which is now shut, and then this is the main high street area, which has changed, dramatic change, I guess, in the 50s. I'm speculating here because I don't really know, but you can see by the buildings up ahead this great big load of flats and shops, which must have been 50s, 60s time, maybe 40s, maybe in the 90s. I mean, you know, in the 20th century. I'm going to say mid 20th century. That'll be the safest thing. There's quite deserted, but lots of cars coming into work this morning. And this is usually quite a thronging community here, and it's early in the morning, so not as thronging as it would normally be. We'll come up past this. What is this tree? It looks like a holm oak. And then this looks like a 60s. You've got the co-op here, past your clothes and shoes collection point. Yeah, that there is a holm oak. I know that's one of the lovely Julia's favourite trees, and it's a shame. I mean, one of the things that, of course, I'm missing at the moment is being able to go out with the lovely Julia and do our walks together. And I'm sure that most people are probably fed up with seeing my miserable face all the time. But hey ho, we'll carry on strolling down here towards the Cricketers pub, which is an old pub, much frequented, with no doubt some amazing tales and stories, and it overlooks Broadwater Green, which is one of the largest greens, village greens, in Sussex. I love the shape of this pub. I'm just going to come right back so that we can get to see it a bit better. Just walking in the in the middle of the road here, which is not a sensible thing, and it's a lot busier than I imagined it would be actually. Time-wise, it's about 8 o'clock now. I need to cross out of this because I want to get over to the green, so I'm going to take a circuitous route around here. There are some older houses. That is relatively old. I think the original building there, and behind, this is a lovely old cottage, Pound Cottage, look at that. Right, just going to cross the road. Got the sun behind me, but here is the large green. I have made a video walking around the green with a gentleman called Martin Snow, and he pointed out some historic things for me. For example, here, this flat space that you see here, underneath that is an air raid shelter from the Second World War, and it's still there, and I don't know if it's still true that the fire brigade often use it for training purposes, but somebody will obviously correct me. And then you've got now around the green lots of villas, you know, Victorian villas, which must have come up in the Victorian period, funnily enough. Very grand, with their balconies overlooking this rather glorious space here. And it's on this space, if you come, not so much now of course, look at that lovely shadow of the tree. Well, there's me and the tree there. You have all sorts of things. You have the fairground come in. There's the early morning car boot sales they have here. I've often passed them. Never actually visited. No, that's a lie. I have been to a car boot sale once or twice. A long time ago when I was into that. I've got so much clutter in my house, I tend not to go to these things, get the bargains that are there. Let's carry on over that direction. There used to be a pond and a ducking stool on this park, and of course the cricket ground. And very often in cricket season you would see people dressed in the whites playing cricket, and it is a delightful thing to see. And often here, I don't know if you can, we're just walking up to it now, but that steel frame, very lightweight frames covered in nets, and I suppose that's what they call, I don't really know much about cricket, funnily enough, and yet I am an Englishman, born and bred, and that's the sort of thing I ought to know, cricket, but I've never really understood it. It's always been a bit of a mystery, but I assume that's what they mean when they talk about practice in the nets. And this is covered in nets, not at the moment, and people play practicing bowling and whacking the ball through all this. It is very lovely, and we're very lucky to have this green. In the far distance behind me, the fire brigade and the tower that they do a lot of their training in, and who at the moment are very much part of the big crisis support. So if any of the fire brigade are watching, thank you for everything you do. You know, we're thanking you anyway because they're keeping people safe, and that's very laudable and very, very important work. We're coming down to this end here, so I don't actually know where the original ducking stool was and the pond, but it was somewhere in here. I'm sure there are people who have pored over the old maps and can tell me. I want to come down and finish on a particularly well-known and important oak tree. So I'm just going past this oak tree, but this isn't the one, and they're going to have to step over the road here, because I believe that the green, which is still behind me and quite extensive, actually went even further. Let's clamber over here. and went right down to this corner. Just let these cars and... Good morning. Down past some more of these villas. Perhaps this is South Farm Road. Some of these villas, of course, they look more like 1930s, 40s, 50s, something like that. And I want to visit a tree that I've been meaning to make a video about, and in times past have read about and now promptly forgotten all the history of it. But it's got various legends attached to it. And again, if I modify my walks, and as this goes on and I try and do some more sort of historically accurate stuff, then I perhaps can do a presentation on it. Here it is. It is an ancient tree. It doesn't look terribly ancient, maybe. There are bigger ones with bigger girths, but this is it. And it's still alive. It's been here for, I don't know what they reckon, a couple of thousand years. Certainly 1,000 years, I believe. It is hollowed out, as you can see, but it is still going. And I will touch it to make a connection with this ancient tree. And the thing about a tree like this, you know, it would have seen so much history. It would certainly have been around during the Great Plague, or certainly the one in London, and the plague before in 1345, was it? 43? It's a beautiful tree. Next to it looks like a sycamore here. I think that's a sycamore or a horse chestnut. Just come round. Oh, here we go. Look, there's a sign here. Why don't I read the sign that's half buried? Oh, okay. So I got all that wrong. The tree is believed to be over 300 years, was once celebrated in local folklore. At midnight on Midsummer's Eve, it was believed that skeletons would rise up from its roots and dance to the rattling of their own bones during the daybreak. Reason enough to ignore everything I say, because I hadn't done the research. Somebody commented, said, Richard, you don't seem to know what you're doing. And it's true, and I don't pretend to. But what I do is trying to get out and give people, particularly at the moment, a little taste of the world if they can't get out. So there it is. Lovely tree. That's it for me. I'm going to make my way back and get some breakfast. So thank you for watching. Do give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you on another one. Till next time, bye-bye, bye-bye.